I'm ready.
Okay.
응답하라 여친. 고 to the to the 실.
팍 to the 경 to the Jew. I think we're syncing in every time it's different, but it's like progressing forward somehow.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
I think.
You are an author.
Yes, I am a published one.
That's amazing. Is this your first book?
Yes, this is my first ever published anything. Yeah, book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
it's
I'm very excited.
amazing. I'm so proud of you. I mean, from the time you told me that you were working on it to having it in my hands, that was a really fast time, maybe like a month. I know you've been working on it for a long time.
No, but and this is why I had to go self-publishing instead of going with a publisher, because this felt long and I'm a very impatient person. And I just knew it wasn't in me to go through a publisher that was going to change everything. I was already being told to. This is a children's book.
You lose a little bit of the autonomy.
Yes.
I guess the creative freedom.
Yes.
I think if you go
from the very first meeting I had with the publisher, and I had several, and they were just. I don't mind. Obviously, I don't mind constructive criticism, but I think everybody approached this like it was the way they were asking questions was like as an adult. And I didn't expect that so much because it's so clear it's, dedicated to my boys. And it's the adventures of Penguin and Panda, their favorite stuffed animals.
I love that there's a picture of them.
Yes, because it's really for them. They inspired me, and that's what made me, want to do the book. But I had people asking me like, why Penguin and Panda? I mean, which fine, and obviously boys.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but how is Penguin and Panda hanging out together? And
they're from different climates, different
habitats. Right. And I get it, but I'm like also like, well, that's like asking like, why are they even characters? But nobody. It makes me wonder. Did anybody ask the writer of Goodnight Moon? Why the fuck are you telling children Goodnight Moon? Right. They're not gonna. The moon's not gonna talk back. Nobody's.
Yeah.
Doing that.
You see shows like Octonauts, and they're all different kinds of animals under the sea in a submarine.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason.
Right. And I'm just like, wait, all the questioning of the story was from that angle, and I was so instantly frustrated because I've shared this book just to talk amongst kids, and they're so excited. And it was really important for me to get this book out to my kids because it's for them at their tender age. Yeah. They're 7, 11. When I started it, if it was 6, 10, and it's already like, I feel like that time is already leaving me. So I didn't want this book to come out when they're like seniors in high school or something, because it wouldn't. What's the point?
Yeah.
So
they're like, why is it Panda and Penguin? And you're like, oh, because those are your favorite animals. Like when I was 7.
Yeah. I wanted it to be, and I had to go back to who am I writing it for? It's my boys and hopefully other children. So I think when you're published with a publishing company, you feel more valid. I think, and I thought, you know what? I'm not someone. I want to just be you, be me.
Yeah, and I love that because this book was you really wanted to write it for your boys as a gift to them, and you wanted to do it your way. That's the message of the book, and you did it your way. Yeah. And you would have had to give up some of that were you, to publish with a publishing company.
Yeah, and this in itself took so long. In fact, this isn't even. I gave this to you. It's the first hardcover copy.
So honored. We have the very first copy.
The first ever. I didn't even give it to my children. Your children came first.
They're like, "Where is the book, Mommy?"
No, well, because it's the first draft almost. because the printing company fucked up.
First edition.
Yeah. So there's pages that I had with the artist, because it was really important for me to talk about the artist. I didn't draw these. And the drawings make the book. And I purposely sought out to work with a Black artist who was phenomenal, but to show our collaboration. And there's a page dedicated to that. And then the printing
with his little bio.
Both of our bios,
awesome.
where how we came about together. And that was so important for me and it got left out. And so it's not to the perfection, but the story's all there. And I wanted your children to give the feedback.
Yes.
I wanted you to read to them and see how it went. And so how was it?
It was really great. They love when they get a new book, and then we always read it together and kind of chat about it. And this one was really special because I showed them the back first.
You did?
And
they know them.
Yeah, they
friends.
were like Gavin and Sawyer. And I said, look at the author. Who wrote it? And so they said, Ellen Imo. And we read it together. They loved the illustrations. Immediately, my 9-year-old Bennett said, she's a really good artist.
And then what did you say?
I said, well, there was an illustrator. And he said, oh,
and he would have
how
known
does she know the illustrator?
He would have known that had that artist illustrator page been in there. But
they're really into noticing the authors and illustrators. So they were just, their minds were blown when they saw your name in print there.
Yeah.
And we read the story. They loved each character.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about what is the message here.
Yeah.
And they got it right away. They were like, be yourself. And that's the best, And there is a character in here. I think the last character, the last part of it, is when Panda and Penguin, these friends, they've talked to several friends on their walk so far, encouraging them to each one to be themselves.
Yeah.
And then they come upon this girl
who yells.
Right there, that shot. If I could screenshot that.
Well, and the funny thing is, I didn't ask him to make the girl. Well, I did want an Asian American girl, but the purple. The artist, Tremaine, put that in there himself without me mentioning anything. And I thought, oh, that's a sweet little ode to me.
Well, I love that he took that creative freedom to do that.
And one of my favorite drawings in this book is this part right here.
There.
The Penguin and Panda going, yeah. It's like, it kind of reminds me of us. Yeochin. Just that energy. But he brought the story to life. When you set out to self-publish, they have so many like readily available, almost like stock illustrators, and it just doesn't have the same kind of individuality. You see so many generic styles and Tremaine, he really listened to me. And the funny thing is, if you see the type of artist work that he does, you wouldn't immediately think that he would be doing a children's book. He does a lot of street art looking, like very edgy stuff. So, but I was immediately drawn to his artwork. And funnily enough, just the way I met you through TikTok, I met Tremaine through TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look him up. Does he share his artwork?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I just noticed a comment one day from him, and it was an interesting comment. And so, you get so many, and his stood out. And I remember like, oh, I wonder, he just sounded so intelligent, which is not what a lot of my comments sound like sometimes. Because I get a lot of trolls, right?
This was an intentional, sincere comment.
Yes. And I felt the sincerity. Exactly. That kind of connection really catches my eye. So then I went on his page. And when I was like, oh my God, this man is an artist. And then I wrote to him like, thank you, and you're talented. If I always wanted to be an artist, and I I hate saying do you admit to having regrets? I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but people, there's people that are like, you don't have regrets, just
How can you not, though?
I know.
At one point, I also wanted to be an artist or a children's book illustrator.
I wanted to be a manachek, right? And I thought I was going to
yeah.
live in Korea in a rooftop and manachek, like writer. Yeah, just drawing comic books. And do we call it comic books or do we call it manga?
I think a lot of times my kid calls it graphic novels.
Oh.
They're comic books.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to be. But when I was younger, and I thought I was good at drawing, and I drew all the time. All the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met this girl in high school who, wow, I don't, I'm just rambling telling you this story, and I didn't even make the connection until now. I met this girl in high school. Did you ever write notes to your friends?
Yes, all the time.
And we would fold it up, and we would
fun
always
shapes.
pass.
Mm-hmm.
So she's Korean, and we would always write in Korean, fold up our notes. And then I started drawing for her. Like, I drew who I thought was a pretty girl, and I was like, oh, I'm so good. Gave it to her, and then she drew things back to me, and hers were like ready to go into print. Good. Like manachek ready. And I was like, and I felt embarrassed. And this is on me. It's not on her because she's super talented. But I looked at her polished, perfected drawing, and me, like, I couldn't complete the body right. I could do the face okay, and whatever girl I drew, the body never came out right or whatever. And I was horrified. And she never made me feel that way. Well, part of me feels like she did. She was like, oh, like kind of like, look what I can do. I can do it better. That I did get that vibe.
I can see that.
It wasn't said, but I felt so like one-upped.
Sure.
I never drawed again.
Oh, no. So
I just was like,
she was the dream crusher.
She was. And we're not friends. There's other reasons to that. She was also a Jehovah's Witness, which nothing on knocking on religion or anything, but she would say things like, I can't get you a gift for your birthday. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Yeah. That's your religion thing. And then comes around her birthday, she goes, but I can receive gifts. Bitch, what?
The double standard.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not getting you shit. So there were things like that just didn't make sense. And eventually, we moved on to college. But yeah, I blame myself. I 너무 뭐라 그럴까? 쫄았어.
Oh.
Like, I shriveled up, like, looking at how good she was. And I felt, it's the Korean culture, right?
It is.
Like, it's
you
so
just
ingrained.
told yourself you couldn't do it, or you wouldn't be as good as she was.
Yeah, we're the same age, and she's so infinitely better in such a perfected way. And I just felt, I felt like a failure. And I'm sure it didn't happen that way, but it felt like at that moment I just dropped my pencil and no more. Oh. And I hate that I did that, because I think I used to draw for fun, and I just didn't pick up to draw again. I just stopped. Right, like.
Did you ever pick it up again?
No, and I was like, oh, I should have just kept drawing. I know this sounds horrible, but looking back at that friendship, I kind of wish I didn't meet her. I don't know if I ever told you this, and this sounds horrible, especially when I'm talking about a wonderful children's book. There are people that I meet that initially I'm so enthralled, and I gravitate towards like, oh my gosh, this person's so talented. I'm drawn in. And then I find out more, and I'm like, I liked you better when I knew you less. I wanted to get a shirt that was made like that.
I think there's
wear
some
it around
truth
all the time.
To that. There's some truth to that. The more you know, the more informed decision you can make.
Yeah.
Right? I feel that I enter friendships very slowly. Is I kind of let it simmer for a while. And then when I feel I can take the next step is when I do, because that has happened to me before, where I've had whirlwind friendships,
Oh.
and then I'll learn more.
See, I'm the opposite. I dive in. And I've learned.
That's a good characteristic.
Anya, well, I think we've met at the extreme opposite, and then we're kind of like both taking steps, and now we're in sort of the similar, we're more reserved. But you're probably like, I need to be more open, and I'm more like, I need to fucking close the doors. You know? But with you, I just realized that we didn't jump in. I mean, we did, but it progressed with time. And I really, because I was very excited to meet you, and I loved our encounter, and we kept in touch, but nothing felt, there was no pushing.
Yeah.
And
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Do you feel a push sometimes?
From other people?
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I would say those, it's very, I am very comfortable with who I am now. So I'm good with pulling back when I need to, because I'm kind of at that place where I can only control myself.
Yeah.
So, depending on how that other person comes on, I can make an adjustment. And I try not to be bothered if I feel pushed, but
I've gotten, I think with our age, it comes with age.
It does.
It definitely years of some fucked up friendships, but you learn a lot. And I love I think ours was very organic. We met, we had a great time. And then I know you're busy, I got busy, and we kept in touch. We met again. We did the whole family thing, and it just built up. We put in like the foundation in the right way, and it's already been years.
Yeah.
Which is really impressive for me, because when I like somebody, I just, but
maybe the distance helped with
the
that.
distance. Me living in the woods, you living in the city.
We have to be really intentional when we get together.
Remember how we talked about this? Like, sometimes with family, especially, like, distance helps.
Distance does help.
Yeah. And
because sometimes that's the only boundary that you can hold.
Yeah.
And boundaries are important.
Are healthy.
They're
boundaries
very healthy.
Are loving.
They're very healthy. And
people
loving.
I think when they hear the word boundary, there's an immediate like negative connotation with it, but it's shelter. And you need to be able to protect yourself,
Yes. Just like you need physical, personal space, you also need that emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
Right? And that space is like, this is mine. It's private and it's sacred to me. And every person deserves that.
It's your home, and I'm open to, I've been very, very open, but almost like too open to a fault. So I've kind of dialed it back with the years. Like, okay, connect with people in the ways it makes sense, and then build friendships that way. And we did that. We did that on just like I think with my husband, always people think like we're so polar opposite. But like I always joke, you're my Adonis and I'm your Ben. We balance each other out, because ultimately, yes, we're different, but our values are most important is our family. And, what matters to us is to make sure the ones that are our children, our husband, that they're good. And I think that goes a long way in how we see each other and how we connect when we converse.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to know how your kids reacted to Be You.
So they still don't know. I mean, they've seen the cover. They have not read it. I really wanted to have the book that I envisioned like to perfection before but they're so excited. They know about it. They've seen some of the drawings and they're like, oh my God, it's so good. They're in such anticipation, and I can't wait to share with them. I'm really, it warms my heart how excited they are. My kids, I think, especially my older one, he has such a tender heart, like a child. Even though he's 11, he still sleeps with this penguin. And I said that one day, and then I was like, oh, I hope I'm not like embarrassing him. He's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, he owns it.
Yeah,
and he loves. Yeah,
he owns it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have any shame about it. And I'm sure there may be a time where that happens, but I'm so glad this book came out where he's still like proud of, you know. And I don't know. I part of me is like, yeah, he owns it. Maybe he won't ever feel shame in it, you know.
Yeah.
Even though he's growing, and his penguin is so beat up. It's gone through the washes. Its eye is chipped. I have to go in with the Sharpie and color it back in. And
you know what's funny? You were saying how some of the publishers you met with, they're asking you all these adult questions.
Yeah.
My kids had none of those questions.
That's what I mean.
They didn't question why Panda and Penguin run into a snake. But it's like, my favorite is a snake. He looks like a spring when he coils up and bounces.
Yes.
Ruby's like, my favorite is the owl because I like owls.
Yeah. So cute. I know. And I doubted myself and I was like, oh, this book isn't good enough. And the way I wrote the book, there was a place in my heart that I always wanted to write a children's book because that's the age that I really want to lift kids up because I never felt like I had that. But this came to me so clearly. I think I was coming back on a flight and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have to write this down. Like I have an idea. This is it. And it just.
That's how you know it's a good idea.
Yeah. And I said, this is it. And I wrote it literally in one sitting. And that's how clear it came to me. And it almost, and we've talked about this, you know, I'm spiritual. The churches don't do it for me, but I did grow up in a Korean church, but my relationship with God has always been like there. And I felt like, he really was like, go write this book. And sometimes when I hear people talk about God in that way, it's like seems cheesy, but I believe in sort of like the universal, like what's for you is for you, you know, and it came to me in such a direct way that I thought it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
how do you think you would have felt at 8 years old when you moved to the States had you read that book?
I wrote it for my children, but I did write it also for myself because I always wonder, especially seeing my children grow up and them thriving without this pressure. At least I really try to not put pressure on them to be this. Because this is the opposite of how I wanted it to be for me. You know, when you have immigrant parents, you know, I mean, I think so many of us experience it from our parents, like, you have to succeed. Particularly, I actually came, would I be considered first generation? What did they say? If you come at a young age, you're 0.5?
I think that's how a lot of Korean Americans say.
Yeah.
Like you're 1.5.
1.5, yeah. So I was like 1.5. I came at 8. And my parents drilled it in me. You better achieve success. Because look at how tough our life is. It was so directly put. There was no beating around the bush. Like, you better not fail us. And it wasn't even that they wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. There was none of that. In fact, at some point, they're like, you're not smart enough to be a doctor or a lawyer.
But that's so hard because it blows my mind because now we're at that age where we're parenting kids that age. And my kids would not be able to have that reasoning if they heard, look, this is what we have given up. Yeah. And so you have to make it worth it.
Can you imagine?
I can't imagine.
Looking at them and being like, hey, get your shit together. Nothing. I mean, I look at my children, they're so innocent and naive. Sometimes I worry that I've sheltered them too much because we grew up in such a extreme. But I, as a child, at 8, that's when I came, and my parents were directly telling me, you better not fail us. We've given up so much. You know
what does that mean to an 8-year-old?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't reason, so then you find some way to reason. Is what your idea of what failing or succeeding is.
Yes.
You know?
But it also translates to everything you do.
Everything.
And it's to the littlest, like, for example, if I leave the home, actually without my wallet, which is what you just told me.
Yeah.
That would drive me insane. I'd be like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't have my wallet and I have all these things in town that I needed to do with my wallet. And now I fucked up, and I would beat myself up like, oh my God, look at how much time you wasted. You failed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is like failure or success.
Mm-hmm.
And that pressure is so suffocating.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I look back at my childhood, I don't remember being a child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember playing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have kids, it makes me think about what kind of person would I have been had I had, comfort and sense of just what is that thing that people say when you have all your there's a terminology when you achieve all your fundamentals of,
I don't know.
I can't remember. It's like a psychological thing where you have all your is it like Maslow's something? Am I just making shit up now?
No, I follow you, but I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I didn't have any of that.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't have the fundamentals of feeling safe, feeling protected. So I was always living in constant fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of abuse from my mom, this pressure that I had to be something to be, accepted by her.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that a child naturally gets love from your parent was not in my home.
Mm-hmm.
So that is sort of also where it comes from. Like this, like I hope that children out there get to just be children.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important phase in one's life where you get to play.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how every like professor out there now, like they emphasize how important play is.
Uh-huh.
And we rush our children to grow up so fast. And I want to make sure they're able to be present in that moment and not feel like they were robbed of it, which is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is totally a different. Did you ever watch Beef? I know we talked all of it.
I watched all of it.
Yes, as did I.
Mm-hmm.
So it may seem like a reach, but when I watched that show, and it's such a weird thing to talk about watching that show because all that David Cho stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh. But I watched it, and I'm sure you did. We were so excited to watch it when it came out that I watched it before the David Cho blow up happened. But that feeling in that show is ultimately about all these things boiling over.
Mm-hmm.
That tension to be perfect, that need to be, feel like you have everything in order to be validated as a person in it.
But all the outside expectations.
Yeah.
And then feeling like you're not meeting any of them.
Yeah.
And then it all coming to a breaking point.
Right. For both of those characters. One super successful, one not successful, but they're still in that same space.
State of frustration.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of time before something blows up in them. And we don't address that until it gets to that point.
Right.
And that's what's that's a totally different talking point than a children's book. But
to bring it back, that was one of my takeaways was reading that book with my kids. My kids took away one thing, right? And as I was reading it, I also was speaking to my inner child and also me in present day. as a mom.
Yeah.
Is how many expectations are put on us
Yeah.
as a mom, and we see more. There's even more opportunity to compare because of the digital age and social media, Instagram moms, who, whatever, right? So every day, and I would venture to say maybe there are people out there who see my content and feel compared to, and
I definitely do.
Well, now you know me, so I hope you do.
You know what? Yes,
but
actually, yes.
all that to say is it's a book that I think it's clever in that whoever is reading it can take away that permission that you can to just be you. And I said that to my kids yesterday, is to be yourself, do you need something? Is that something you need permission for? And immediately they're like, no. I'm like, because you are you. Yeah. But sometimes maybe you feel the world doesn't give you permission to be yourself.
Absolutely.
And so it's an important message such an important message for you to share with your kids, and in the form of a children's book. I think that will be a lifelong gift for them.
And that's what I'm proud of. Honestly, I mean, I hope to reach other kids as well, but to make something tangible, this is my love letter to my boys, and they are the best of me, because I didn't know that I could be a good mom. I feared having children. And to be in this space now and having children that are clearly thriving, my breath is taken away. Like, wow, like, it's possible to heal from your trauma and do better. And I used to not be able to take ownership of that, but I finally feel like I can, because they're doing so good. And seeing that, really seeing, wow, these are wonderful human beings, because they're kind and they're caring and they're intelligent and they're just good people first and foremost. And I know that it's a lot about them, but also they had the environment to be that. So I am proud.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. And it's and you know, in our Korean culture, I don't know about you, but I felt like I almost felt anytime I felt proud or I thought I could get there, my parents shamed me. Immediately, like, oh, do you think you're smart because there's someone smarter than you? Oh, do you think you're pretty? You're not that pretty. Oh, do you think you're skinny? You're not that skinny. You know, and it's like, of course, being humble is a wonderful trait, but if that practice gets a person to cut themselves down in such a automatic, repetitive way, at some point it does more harm. And there's a fine line, right? Like, there's a fine line to everything in life, and you have to find that balance. But mine was so deteriorated, and it took me so long to get here. And I think that's what it is. Like, I finally, at 41, feel like I can breathe. And I don't want my kids to take that long to find their breath.
And they won't. They have it. You know, they're great kids. You're such a supportive and wise mom when I see you, and the way you love on my kids too.
Oh, your kids are Stinking cuties. Ruby's like, back that ass up.
Like Bennett knew right away. Did Ellen Emo put herself in that book? Because I noticed that girl has purple hair.
Yeah.
And she likes to be loud. And she kind of looks like Ellen Emo. And I said, yeah, do you think that was intentional? Maybe,
Yeah.
And I hope I'm looking forward to hearing how your boys react when they hear the full story and read the full book for the first time. And I think they will immediately recognize you. They'll recognize themselves and they'll recognize you.
Yeah.
And you're giving them everything. And not in a martyr kind of sacrificial way, but out of love.
Yeah,
and
it's
a desire to.
It's
really,
a gift.
Yes,
it's a gift without conditions, without
full
refund
acknowledgement
receipt.
that they're already fully formed people. They're their own beings.
Yes.
So, as long as we're raising you.
Yeah.
We want you to have all the support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. I didn't cry. Did you cry? Well, with that,
I love that discussion.
Yeah.
I would love to hear how people react to the book if you've shared it with your kids, with your family. So please write to us at reply@replyYC.com.
First buy it.
Yes.
And yes, please write and give us the feedback. We can talk some more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Should we sign off?
Sure.
All right.
Reply
YC.
Until next time.
Woohoo!